Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on March 22nd, 2022 at approximately 1:42 p.m. PST. Well, I told you yesterday we were going to get started. So, that said, got my desk cleared and yesterday as soon as I got done. It is right now. It's got a bunch of paperwork still on it that is current. Well, technically it's not current, but it is next on the list to do. So the office desk is set up. Okay, I've got things worked out in the right order. The second thing I said, I had to get these horoscopes written and recorded so they could be turned in. Well, they're done. They don't get turned in until tomorrow. So that step is complete. Now let's get down to the basics on where you've got to start to bring things up to speed and understand. Okay, I bill myself as a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. We'll get to the paranormal in a bit because it's all interlocked. But the reason I call myself a spiritual guide is that the tools that I offer are exactly the same tools I personally use. Okay, these are the ones that I have used to turn my life around and continue to use to turn my life around, as well as the philosophies of life that I live by. These are the same ones that I personally work with. Okay, now this is a live recording, so any mistakes I do make, any stumbles or hiccups, they go on recording. I go back when I'm done this video, double check to make sure I got the date and time right, and post it as is. So, understanding that the big message I came to this world to pass on to everyone in existence is that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Okay, now, am I asking you to help me with this? Absolutely. Because everyone that we pass this message on to has the clear potential of altering the way their life goes, and that's where it starts. You start here with an emotional imperative. Well, in all fairness, the energy starts up here in the etheric realm. Okay, the message comes down to you. Whether you want to say it comes to your heart first or it comes to your mind first doesn't really matter. In either event, until it gets to the heart, your mind may work great to get things organized, but until that impetus gets to the heart, the odds of you sorting it out are not good. This does not mean they're not possible. But we're going to start with this. Okay, the backbone of the home is the family unit. Okay, now if we look at the physical home, this is your kitchen, dining room, and living room. Those are the areas that you work with there, and we will come to those at another time. Right now, we're going to take a look at the backbone of your house, which is your finances. Now, many of you are in the same boat as everybody else, and it doesn't matter what your income is. I've seen people that are way below the poverty line having trouble making ends meet. I know of one person in particular I talked to where the bonus check was $100,000. Okay, that was their annual bonus check. $100,000, and they couldn't make ends meet. Okay, because what seems to happen, and I fell victim to the same thing. Okay, your income comes in and your spending goes up accordingly. Now, the problem comes about when you start looking at credit. Okay, credit's a wonderful thing, but credit means you now owe somebody else. So let's get started on getting things organized. First step, okay, regardless of what income you're standing on, doesn't really make any difference at all. First step is you take a look at your list of bills. Take a look at your rent or your mortgage, your utilities, meaning your gas, your power, your cell phone, your cable, your insurance, your credit, the credit cards you have. Okay, and when I'm talking credit cards, I'm referring to your the minimum payments, but we're looking at the whole thing. Okay, the credit cards, a little bit for savings, your entertainment, put all of it together. Okay, figure out what that is going to cost you to run per month. That's the first step to turning your finances. Okay, now, once you've got that number, for me, that number is $2,500. Okay, that will cover everything I require. Okay, now, of course, you want to, the reality of it is, once you've got that, your numbers will vary. Okay, I'm not here to tell you what's important to you. I am here to tell you if you're behind in power and you're behind in your cable, your cable or your internet, you've got, and this sounds real simplistic. It's like, who could oversight and see this? But if you've got the power and your cable that are behind, your critical priority has got to be your power. Because sure, you can keep your cable up to date, but if you don't keep the power running, you don't get the cable anyway. So your first step, you figure out what your overall, what the cost is of running your average home. I forgot to mention that, Bill. Don't forget your food. Okay. Now, I'm not the one to tell you what your bills are. Put that list together. Figure out what you require to run your house. Okay. That is the number you start with. The number that you put in that I work with at 2,500. Okay. Once you've got that down, now we go to step 2. Okay, because step 2 is the easy part. Now you're going to take a look at all the bills you have. Now, this is a tedious, annoying, can be a real depressing thing to look at. But I will tell you, it's absolutely critical. Oh, the other thing I mentioned I was going to do is get organized so I had an idea. Hence, I've got a list of things I'm actually working on at this point to try and keep things moving in the right direction. Once you know what your living expenses are, now you take a look at all of the bills you got, every one of them, whether they are personal bills, as in you borrowed money from a friend, or you borrow money from a bank, you borrow money from from the government, whatever. Doesn't matter where the money came from. Whatever you owe, maybe you've got, well, we include your utility, what the overall is, because you may be behind it. Now you look at what the actual bill is. Okay, get those together. List them in three. There's 3 groups of bills. Your living expenses. Then once you've got your living expenses, that's what we just talked about. Then you've got your interest accruing bills, meaning your credit cards, any loans or lines of credit you may have. Okay, where if you don't pay it off, you have to pay interest on it. You put them, that's your second list. Get them sorted together, then everything else that you're not paying interest in. Maybe it's a loan to a friend of yours, and all they're asking for, they loaned you X number of dollars, and they're just asking for that principal amount back. That's the third list of bills. Okay. Now, in each of those 3 categories, separate them into from the most expensive down to from the monetarily speaking, as in the actual amount of money you have. Okay. List them off from the highest dollar value in each of these 3 groups down to the lowest. Now, your priority bills are your payments on your living expenses. Those are of critical importance. They get paid before everything. Okay. Once you've got that list sorted out, that's your first priority. Your next priority is you take a look at the interest accruing ones, the ones that you are paying interest on the balance that you haven't paid. Now, something to keep in mind, a very important factor. If you've got a lease, okay, or more importantly, let's say you bought a vehicle that you are paying because it's 0% interest for 6 years. This is a good deal. If you pay that entire amount off in 6 years. Okay, the thing, as far as I understand it, and double check with your own people, but as far as I understand it, if you don't pay that entire amount off, if you leave $1 standing, they will take and add on to the bill the entirety of the 6 years of interest will all of a sudden be added right back on top of the bill. So it is absolutely critical that you pay that 6 years on that interest-free loan, whether it's a car, a piece of furniture, a luxury item. It doesn't matter. If you're buying it interest-free for X number of months, don't kid yourself. It's not a case of let's try and get it paid off. It's a question of that becomes a critical priority. But we take a look at your interest accruing debts. Okay. And again, you've listed them from the, monetarily speaking, the highest dollar value you owe, down to the lowest. Okay. Now, we've already taken care of the living expenses. Now we take a look at those interest bills. You target the smallest, monetarily speaking. If you've got, $1,500, $800, you got one that's $400, you got one that's only a $100 bill, and it's interest accruing. You've already paid your minimum payments. You've paid your utilities and what have you. Those go first. Actually major change. Your paycheck comes in. Well, we'll get to that. I just screwed that up royally for you. Sorry about the confusion. Okay. When your paycheck comes in, absolutely critical. Take a look at your paycheck. Whatever it is. Take 1%, only 1%, off the top and put it in your pocket. Okay, before you pay a thing, put 1%, take 1% off the top. That's $1 out of every complete $100. Take that dollar and put it in your pocket. That is your mad money. Okay, if you have a spouse or if you have children living at home, okay, it is recommended you give each of them 1% off the top, if at all possible. Okay, the reason for that is because it changes the energy of the income from I'm working to pay my bills to I'm working and paying my bills. Okay, now jump back forward here. You've got your utilities paid, your kids, this 1% is part of those living expenses. And I'm probably going to go back over that again. Okay, so I hope I haven't confused things. Once you've got the living expenses taken care of, now look at the bills that are interest accruing. Get all of the minimum payments dealt with. Pay them off. Okay, now you've got X number of dollars left. Okay, you may not have a lot. And if you're in a tighter bind than this, absolutely drop me a line at one of the contact points below this video. We'll set up a time and we'll sit down and talk. When I talk about helping guide you through this, okay, this is simply a way of handling your finances. Okay, once you've got those minimum payments out of the way, you've got X dollars left. Now, for me, for instance, okay, I require $2,500 to cover my living expenses. That's all minimum payments and everything. But I make more than that a month. So once you've got those payments dealt with, if you've got a lump sum extra, turn around, take that lump sum, and you put that on the smallest interest accruing debt. You wipe that debt out as quick as you can. Okay. And the reason for that is simple. Mentally speaking, it is easier, I've found, to deal with one large bill as compared to several minor bills. So you write off the small interest accruing debt. Okay, and you sink everything into it until it's gone. Okay, that way you start eliminating the number of debts you have. I used to have in excess of 30 independent bills. I'm down to one. I've got my living expenses, but I've got one debt that is left. Now, this is why I say this method works. This is the same method I personally used. And for that matter, am personally using today. Okay. So you take that and you write off that first debt. Now you still got a little bit left, maybe. Okay? So we're looking at getting rid of your debt load. Because I will tell you, you wipe out your debt load, you will feel immensely better. That thing I was talking about yesterday about fighting depression because you feel like you're at the end of the world, because you feel like you have not made any headway and there's nowhere to turn. Okay, I am not the best of the best. I'm just me. But I've come from a point of, in my eyes, almost no return. However, with the assistance of some of the people around me, I managed to get my head on straight, and at this point, I know exactly where I'm standing. Still working on some of the fine details on how to track it properly, but where it comes to knowing what my income is, I've got it down fine. I've got it down to the dollar. Okay, so again, just to run through it, and I realize there was a little bit of confusion there. You take a look at your living expenses first. And this is where I screwed up to start with. Living expenses. First and foremost, off the top, take 1% off the top of what you have made, of what your paycheck is. Now that 1% boils down to $1 out of every $100, out of every full $100. Okay, so if you've made $500 in your check, and $500 in your check means you take $5 off. That is your coffee money until your next paycheck. That's it. Okay, that same 1% give to every member of your household that lives there, that you're, if you will, responsible for. Yourself, your spouse, your foster kids, your kids, aunts, uncles, whoever is living in that house. Okay, this does not mean your renters. Your renters are not, unless, from my standpoint, if your kid's paying rent, he's still your kid. Okay, but you take that 1% goes to the family members. You take your rent or your mortgage, because it's the same thing. Take your rent or your mortgage, get it paid. Get at least the minimums on your utilities paid. This applies to even if you're behind. You pay your minimums. You stop the process, you stop the bleed first. Work through, pay the minimums of your living expenses, pay the minimum of your credit cards. Okay, get them done before you do anything else. Okay, now the thing with the credit cards is this: you get the payment on the credit card made. Then you turn around and you look at what you've got for what your utilities bills are. Now, depending on your utility bill, on your credit card, we'll try that one. Depending on your credit card, okay, for me personally, okay, I work with Capital One. Okay, now some people, why are you telling me that? Well, it's because that one I know. With Capital One, by paying my utility bills with my credit card. Okay, I put the money onto the credit card to make that payment and put in enough to cover the utility bills. Then you take your credit card and pay the utility bills with it. And the reason for that is by paying the utility bills with the credit card, you've already got the payment on the credit card. Now you can take that money without losing it and pay your utilities. Okay, get the minimums out of the way. Once the minimums are out of the way, take what you've got left of that paycheck and sink it onto the smallest, monetarily speaking, interest accruing debt. These are your credit cards, purchases that are zero interest until X number of months down the road. Your leases, okay, your mortgage, all of these things. Take a look at them, have them all listed together, and you take the smallest, monetarily speaking, and you pay as much of a chunk on that as you can because you're targeting those bills. Now, here's the thing. If you've got more than one credit card, Very strong recommendation. Do not cut them up. I have talked to enough financial advisors and people who have gotten into debt that they go, cut your credit card up. Do not. Okay. Absolutely. Pull it out of your wallet. I had one client that came to me and she said she couldn't control her spending. So what she did, instead of cutting her credit card up, she put it in a plastic baggie. She put it in a bucket, filled the bucket with water, and dropped the whole thing in the freezer. This protects the credit card from the water, and it makes it so impossible to get at in a hurry to use it that you have to really think, do I have to have that credit card? Okay. But you keep only one credit card available. If you're aiming to get out of debt, and let's say you've got 6 or 7, I used to have 13 credit cards. And I know that there are people that will look at me and tell me I'm absolutely insane for what I'm about to say. I intend on having as many credit cards as I can get a hold of. But the kicker with the credit cards is you never spend more than 10% on the credit card than the value of the credit card. Now, for me, my one credit card has a credit limit of a whopping $7,500. Now, that said, once I get it cleared, never again, if I can at all avoid it, will it ever go above $750 in debt. Credit is only useful if a credit card is only useful if you do not pay interest on it, which means if you're buying something on it, get it paid off ASAP. One financial advisor I heard about suggested you buy something with a credit card, you give it a week, and then pay it off. Okay, and that makes total sense from my standpoint because it gives the credit gives the card a chance to register it, and then you pay it off. Again, you make absolutely certain you do not have credit on it. That it is 100% debt-free before it's due. Okay, there are little tricks and tweaks to it that you can do. Okay, now what about all the other bills that you've got, all the other loans that you've got, the people you borrowed money, even if they didn't ask for it back? Okay, somebody loaned you $100 to get ahead. Okay, you turn around, you look at that. That is the third block of bills, the ones that you're not paying interest on. Okay, those are the last bills you target. Okay, we will get you through all of them. Okay, but to start with, that gets you on the right track, and you target the smallest interest accruing debt first. And the reason for that is simple. Mentally speaking, it's easier to deal with one bill than it is to deal with 15. Now, like I said, I used to have 13 credit cards. I believe that was the number. Okay, because of stupidity on my part, and quite frankly, very poor financial guidance from so-called professionals, I ended up losing all of them. Okay, I've now got one that is stable. Okay, and even 3 years ago, I had 3, one of which I lost because I still hadn't figured out the formula. The second one I lost because they actually cut off their Canadian supply line. So they just shut everybody's credit card down. That one I don't feel I did anything wrong with. It was running fine. And they just said, no, we're killing our Canadian connection. So you don't have a card anymore. Now, that said, I was just sent an offer by that company to get a card with them. Now, because I ended on good terms, I had them all cleared off before they closed their account. Okay, before they closed it, I got this offer back. I will be looking into it when I get my credit rating back where I desire it to be. But you start by getting those bills under control. And that under control is started by taking your list of living expenses. That 1% that goes to you and your family, 1% to each of you and your family. Okay, depending on your size, that could be big. Your mortgage first, Mortgage or rent, they're the same thing. It's just a different landlord. Your credit cards, your utilities. Okay, you take care of all of those living expenses. Okay, that's the bill that you want. That's the number you want to start with. Once you've done that, well, over here. I did this. Okay, now here I have legally acquired a minimum of $3,500 by March 31st, 2022. And I just noticed that should say, where is the pen I'm looking for? And of course it's missing. Well, that really went well to start with, and now it's got a problem. This, I'm sure some of you will recognize this. It is 2359. 2359. Like I said, I will walk you through it. Okay. March 31st, 2022 at 23:59, which is military time for 1 minute to midnight. Okay. This one below has to do with business and what I am looking at my business generating. Okay, Inner Voice Enterprises has legally generated a minimum of $600 by March 31st, 2022 at 23:59. Now that I keep right here where it's handy where I can see it. Okay, so I can see that on a regular basis. Now by doing that, okay, it keeps me focused on the finances. And since I work on my finances here, that keeps it front and center. Now, these are tools that apply to everybody, no matter your income, no matter your race, your nationality, who you vote for. It doesn't matter. You're all exactly the same. Now, that would sign up there that says, I am worth it. That is the 4 most powerful words in any language I've ever come in contact with, where it comes to rebuilding self-esteem and self-worth. It helps immensely in self-motivation as well, by the way. So these are simply tools that I use. Now, we'll walk through a little more of that. I'm going to be jumping back and forth. Okay. I will check in with you tomorrow. I'll be back again tomorrow. I try and get these out once a day. Okay. And I am determined to do so. I've let things slip long enough. It is time for us to walk out of this mess together. Change the energy in our home. Okay, change the energy in our house. And thereby, working together, we can change the energy in this world to make this world a better place for virtually everyone. Okay, I will be back again tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.